Hey guys, welcome back. This is the last week of the contest, and today is the drawing. And so I wanted to do today is very exciting, is go ahead and go over this week's things that you guys mentioned for the television show idea, and then we'll do the drawing. But first we got to pick a winner for the extra chance to win. And I'll tell you what, this was the hardest week of all, of so far, of any anything with this contest. This was incredibly difficult to pick because so many of you had great ideas, and other times you had similar ideas. And so trying to pick one over the other, then it had to be more about how you presented your idea or any special things that stood out. So what I did is, after I watched all your videos, I couldn't decide, so I had to re-watch them. But what I did is I pretended that I was at a Star Wars convention. I'm just a fan in the crowd, and you and George Lucas are standing up on a stage, and you're talking to the crowd, and you're trying to reveal this idea, and you say, this is the new Star Wars television show, and then you give the theme, and what would the audience reaction be? So would we all stand up and cheer, or would we all be really interested, or would people be bored? And so that's the only way I could decide. And some of you guys were persuasive, just the way that you worded things, or tried to tell me why you made this decision instead of picking a different movie to go on. So what I want to do is go down and tell you what I thought. Now we had Philip talked about like a stormtrooper band of brothers. So it happens during the time of the rebellion, and but it's kind of like the Clone Wars, except that you're following stormtroopers. And he talked about you could have cameo appearances by General Veers or Grand Moff Tarkin, and they would be like a police agency at first, and maybe you wouldn't know if they're good guys or bad guys, but eventually they would turn into a, maybe they would rebel against the Empire or something like that. I was trying to think of, where it would go as a direction, because when you've got them being the bad guys against the rebellion, and here we're watching the movies and they're winning, people might get a little mixed up. But isn't it that way with the Clone Wars too? They're the good guys, but the wars, so anyway, for the Clone Wars that we're currently watching, I was trying to compare it to that a lot, and it is a really good idea, and it could really go somewhere. Plus, it would be a great chance for them to have a Clone Wars, the animated style of AT-AT walkers and all the equipment things he was talking about, and it would just be really neat. So it was a great idea, Philip. Thank you. Then there was Joe decided that his would be, after Return of the Jedi, it would be kind of like a Jedi Academy, and there would be maybe some older Jedi would survive Order 66, live in exile until the rebellion overthrew the Emperor, and then they would show up. And I thought that could actually turn into some really good plots for episodes, like maybe Luke is in the Jedi Temple teaching a group of kids to be Jedis, and then some old Jedi shows up and attacks Luke or something like that because he's Vader's son. I thought that would be really neat. That would be a good thing for an episode, is him trying to live down the legacy of his father, and stuff like that would be really great. And Matt also had the same idea, or similar idea, but his was based more on the books of the New Republic and the Skywalker family. And there's actually, if you've read those books, and I haven't read all of them, I've read most of them, but there's a lot of drama with Han Solo and Leia have children, and then so do Luke and Mara Jade, and so those kids are being raised in the Force, and they're extremely powerful, and there's lots of drama between them all, and so there's plenty of room there for a great series. Then we had James, Vader Fan 777, and his was called The Rise of the Empire, and what it would do is carry on after the Clone Wars, after Revenge of the Sith. When Darth Vader, Anakin is no longer Anakin anymore, he's Darth Vader, and it would follow the story of how Han Solo becomes the great smuggler he is, how Boba Fett becomes a great bounty hunter, and how they interact in the Empire. So with Vader, he had a really great idea for an episode of Boba Fett getting a confrontation with Vader and being thrown in jail, and having to go through all this stuff, and it was a really great idea. And there was now this is the one that really was tricky, was Jacob had the idea to follow a story that follows Boba Fett, so it kind of picks up where the Clone Wars leaves off. So it's kind of similar to James's idea. They have some overlap with, and that's what makes it hard to pick between them, is he wanted to follow Boba Fett through like the Shadows of the Empire, and also after Return of the Jedi, after he gets out of the Sarlacc pit, and mostly it would follow Boba Fett. And so he also had some overlap with what Julius was saying with Shadows of the Empire. And he explained it really well. It was a great idea, and I think that would be great. And they could even have the guy Daniel Logan, who played Boba Fett in Attack of the Clones. He'd probably be old enough at that point to voice Boba Fett. And they're actually talking about making a Boba Fett movie. At least there are some directors approaching George Lucas over it, but I don't think it's ever going to happen. But to make a movie just on Boba Fett, because he is his popularity is amazing. I'm sure they could make $1 trillion off a TV show based on him. Look how much they make off action figures. But then there was Free Video 2000. He said that it would be the Force Unleashed cartoon. So take the story of the Force Unleashed, go a little bit more in depth in the building up of the rebellion and the purging of the Jedi, and I think that would be an amazing idea. I actually read recently that the guy who does the voice and gave his face to Galen Merrick is he's also doing the voice of Darth Maul in the upcoming Clone Wars show. But not only that, they think that he's going to make, because it follows in that same timeline, is the live-action Star Wars movie they're coming out with, or Star Wars TV show. It's a live-action TV show, and that he might make an appearance as Galen Merrick, and he looks just exactly like him. They made the character look just like the voice actor, and so that would be really neat to see a live-action Galen Merrick. But to see a cartoon based on that would also be good, because that is an amazing story. I really enjoyed the first Force Unleashed game a lot, and the story, I don't know where it's going from here, if they're going to make part 3, but it was a great idea. And but I had to pick a winner, and it was very, very difficult this week. I can't tell you how hard it was, because I just had a really difficult time. But I went with Julius, and this is why. A little bit life-size. Because imagine yourself sitting there in a convention center. George Lucas is up there. He introduces Julius, and Julius gets up and says, after the Clone Wars is over, the new cartoon show is going to be Shadows of the Empire. And then it shows some, maybe a trailer for the series, and you have Luke Skywalker jumping around or cutting the end off of a swoop as it's a speeder bike as it's coming to attack him on Tatooine, or maybe building his lightsaber. Or you could have some really great scenes of Princess Leia in the bounty hunter disguise sneaking on Coruscant, or Prince Shizor, and they also had a lot of great things with you. The thing about Shadows of the Empire book is that it's designed like 100 different comic books, which would be perfect to turn into a TV show, because each one has a different plot. So you have, at one point, you have Luke trying to use the Force to get out of prison because he got thrown in jail, and so he's got to break out. And then Vader's on his way to come get Luke, and so he's got to get out before Vader gets there. And he's trying to use the Force, but he's frustrated. So it would be a lot of parallels with what Anakin Skywalker's going through in Clone Wars, trying to control his Force abilities. And then you could cut to the next episode, would be nothing but Princess Leia in a casino with Lando as they're trying to get information on where to find Boba Fett. And you could have an episode of Boba Fett trying to escape from Bossk and the other bounty hunters. And then you have another episode with Wedge and Rogue Squadron as they're trying to get the information for the second Death Star from the Bothan spies. And there are so many thousands of ways you could take this and do what they do in the Clone Wars, which is you have this material, and some fans don't like it, but you have this material and they expand on it and kind of change things, so it wouldn't have to follow the book exactly. You could just take one of those scenes, like the Wedge and Rogue Squadron, and turn it into a 3-part miniseries where Wedge is leading Rogue Squadron, and then Luke shows up, and they, have to get the Death Star plans, and change it up a little bit, and put a little bit more action and detail. And I think that would cause the crowd at a Star Wars convention to just go out of their minds to see an animated version of Luke Skywalker and Lando and everything. And there was one downside to this that there's really no getting around, is that the only problem with Shadows of the Empire is that Han Solo one of the greatest characters of all time is trapped in carbonite the whole time, so there wouldn't be a Han Solo in this series. But that wasn't enough of a downside that I couldn't say that that his wasn't the best idea. So I thought that it was really great. Thank you, Julius. And you're going to get 4 entries now. And so what I've done is I wrote everybody's name down, typed them out, and printed them, and cut them into these little strips. And now I'm going to do a drawing, and the first winner gets the Darth Revan and your choice of a vintage figure and a vintage collection carded figure. And then the second person gets the Shadow Guard, and the third person gets the animated Boba Fett. And then we're also going to do a drawing for the subscribers, anyone who commented on last week's video. And because of time constraints, I'm going to go ahead and upload this one, and then we'll have a separate drawing video. But I'll upload them at the same time so you won't have to wait around. Alright guys, thank you.